channels, right? I mean, look, stuff changes, strategy changes. We're just on a calendar there. And we can automate a lot of that, which I think makes it really powerful. There's a second bucket where, look, I call it the triggered experiment, right? Something endogenous, something exogenous to the business has changed, and we just need to go out there and figure out what's going on, right? Whether that's a new strategy, whether that's a new product offering, whether it's something going on in the competitive landscape, whether it's something like, giant that it impacts the entire industry, like iOS or COVID or something like that. Sometimes you just know, I got to get it back out there and test something, right? The world changes a lot more quickly than, the data changes and my models can kind of pick up on the signal. And then there's the third bucket where it's like, hey, how am I using testing to get out there and answer like really meaty strategic business questions, right? Because one of the great things about testing that you can't do with these sort of data-driven modeling things is that you can't prove a negative. I don't have any data on how this new strategy is going to work because I haven't tried it out yet. But what I can do is I can go out and test out that strategy. I can see how it plays out, and I can get a sense for whether it's net accretive or positive or not before I actually put it out there and get any data and see what happens, right? So that third bucket is where we really push brands to line testing up against their biggest strategic business questions, because I love to go in and talk to CMOs and say, hey, what's keeping you up at night? What's your biggest opportunity in the next 6 months? Where are your biggest threats? And when I hear them talk, I say, you know what, that thing you just brought up there, that's a testable hypothesis. That's something we can go out and test. You just told me that you thought if you could make a case for a $10 million, upper funnel, reach-based awareness campaign, and you could put it on top of all the stuff you're doing, that you would drive the best, Q4 holiday that you've seen in 10 years. It's like, okay, like, let's go out and let's go test that, right? Like, let's take a portion of the country, let's implement that strategy. Let's see how effectively that works, right? And then let's use that to make a case to finance, to make a case to the board, to get those budgets, because we've got data that tells you it's a game changer for us.
That's smart. How long do these experiments take for a brand to get usable data, something they can say, okay, we're going to go lean into this or pull out of that based on the data?
Yeah, our typical experimentation period is about 4 weeks, right? So we build, and what Measure does is automate a lot of the kind of heft around the data science and kind of pushing these things out, and allows you to get these things out very quickly and at scale. We typically will put them in market for about 4 weeks. That would be the average. Now, sometimes you want to run these tests a little longer. Maybe you're looking at how you really kind of drive consumer behavior further up the funnel. And so maybe you want to extend that out to say 8 weeks to answer certain questions. But I'd say the typical is 4. The maximum we tend to do are 8-week experiments. Like, if we're not seeing pretty clear and compelling evidence by then, we don't find that it moves much past that. But that's what we're looking at. And because of the way we set this up and the way we automate this stuff, brands might be able to run 3 or 4 of these 4-week experiments at any given time. And that gives you a lot of opportunity throughout the year. If you think about doing, hey, I've got 8-week sprints where I'm running 3-4 experiments at a time, that adds up over the course of the year. That's a lot of learnings.
Yeah, for sure. Where does creative fit in? Like, how does it impact the testing? I guess if it's apples to apples, if they're using the same bad creative everywhere, then you're going to get the same results. But at the same time, the right creative for the right user on the right platform could be crucial to performance. And how do you ensure that you're not making media decisions based on the wrong messaging?
Yeah, and this is where it all kind of comes together, right? Because what you tend to do is like, look, I'm going to bring a message to a portion of the audience, and that portion of the audience is usually at a specific place in the journey, right? For a lot of channels, hey, I'm going to target people who have never purchased before. I'm going to target people who have been to the site but not purchased. I'm going to target someone who's already purchased from me. You tend to kind of bring them a message with that targeting with a certain channel, right? So that is all kind of part of how you reach the consumer and how you ultimately influence their decision. So I think a lot of the testing that we do is sort of inclusive of those things. Now, where we can and have done a lot of testing is, look, what creative strategy, what creative format is best at this point in the funnel, right? Like we see a lot of evidence that the further you go up the funnel, the more you want to use, brand images and video and things like that, as opposed to, catalog or product ads or things like that, right? And the answer can be different for different brands. So we don't use this technique to kind of say, hey, do you like image A or image B? Do you like the purple? Do you like the green? That's really kind of the place for traditional sort of A/B type testing. We're more thinking about, what is the strategy? What is the messaging? Is a promo in? Is a promo not? What's the ad format? And comparing those types of things, and comparing how do you sort of optimize that strategy for different channels, targeting different audiences at different points in the funnel. So I think of it a little bit more strategic than creative A versus creative B.
Yeah, in one of our more recent episodes, we had Ben Shea on from SignUpBox, and they're sort of modernizing that sort of A/B testing, sort of what you would do in a focus group, but online. And I think we were saying is go there first, test your creative messaging against your target audience with context around the platform, and then do your media experiments. That makes a lot. What I was thinking about when I asked the question, and maybe I should be more clear, is I've heard people. I'll ask someone about audio advertising or CTV, and I'll get a response like, "Oh, we tried it; it didn't work." And then I'll ask a follow-up question like, "Well, okay, how targeted did you get?" Because that's the power of those two channels, right? You can get really specific on content, on audience, on creative, on messaging. Like there's a lot of things you can do.